What's up, guys? This is Theo, and I wanted to just shoot this video. We're out here in Cabo and wanted to help you guys to understand really the best practices that myself, our clients have been leveraging to get their offers in front of more of the right people and to stand out as a brand voice, optimizing with AI systems for IG and leveraging YouTube as well. Now, the VSLs, I want to talk about VSLs because I've made several VSLs, and each VSL has actually made me personally multiple millions of dollars. Think of it this for a second. How is it that you can make a 10 to 12 minute video that goes through, number one, the hook of who it's for, most importantly, the real pain points that your dream clients are facing in their current situation compared to where they want to go, and then looping that into a story. For instance, like I've told the story about how we used to do 7 figures, have a huge team, managing a sales team, burnout, overwhelm, and having about, let's say, 50% to 60% profit margins. And to be quite frank, revenue is not that impressive at all. What it's about is about profit margin. So when you look at revenue / profit margin, plus getting more reach, plus expanding your reputation, that 3-point trifecta is what everybody says that they want, which is a higher level of influence, to have high impact communication, high impact synergy, and ultimately ways that you can create value and be the top person in your space, become that person without forcing copied strategies or things that are just hacks or gimmicks. I never really resonated with those. It's easy to actually get seduced into trying those things because it's a freaking fast track. But if you really look at real companies, real businesses that have lasted 5, 7, 10, 25 years, they're not thinking about, oh, how do I look cool in front of my audience and drive a nice sports car. They're not thinking about that shit. So if you're concerned about like keeping up with the Joneses, I highly suggest that you really dial in, focusing on the needle movers, which is of course quality lead flow, instead of talking to people who are not even engaging with you, responsive to you, people who are skeptical or low intent. What you want to do instead is you want to understand how to get people to trust your process before they even see your offer, before they even become qualified for your offer. This is exactly why having a VSL that tells your story and positions you with the story and the framing, that should inform exactly how your mechanisms stand out, so that your client can of course get a transcendent result, whether that be you're in the health wellness niche or whether that be you are in the relationship niche. We've helped hundreds of those different intangible offers. That's how I got to get known in the industry, info space, was I became successfully in terms of selling intangible offers. It took me about 7 to 8 years to actually learn how to package and position things in a crowded marketplace, or how to niche in a way where you don't talk to people who are brokies or tire kickers, or people just want to waste your fucking time on calls, but rather you book about 18 to 20 high quality monthly calls of dream prospects, people who are actually looking for a solution, people who are open to change, people who are financially qualified to even afford your high ticket spaces, your highest proximity spaces, and of course people who believe that your offer is the best solution with all things considered as to what they've already tried.
The real G's know what's up. The people who are not G's filter themselves out by their own volition because they refuse to accept who they could be. And the people who are who they want to be are in their own level of excellence. So, if you're excellent, then you're a G.
This is the master brain behind our AI optimizations, and you'll be seeing more of Caleb.
Well, think about it like this also with AI. If you're programming an AI, I have to be able to put in the ethics of people inside of an AI. So if I don't do it from a space of knowing what people need, then I'm affecting millions of people who use my chat too, or my chat bot that I make for them. So it's very important to know morals too as you program anything, especially automations. And as your morals align with people that do automations, so does your creation.
Yeah, and most people are either back-end optimized or front-end optimized. And the people who are front-end optimized, maybe they're good founders, but they suck at systems. That's where people like Caleb come in, so that they don't lose their authentic brand voice. And that's where people like myself come in to show people how to turn their front-end messaging into high-quality attraction of dream clients on the top of funnel. So that's important for people to understand about social media, IG, and YouTube. When you're putting your real life's work out for people to actually receive the benefit of. And to be quite frank, when you actually price things accordingly, you allow people to get the real value out of the very value that you're building for your client fulfillment. If you don't price accordingly, what ends up happening is that you may know, and your past clients may know, that it's highly valuable. But if you are competing on price point, you're kind of fucking yourself, because you don't understand how to price things properly so that people can get actually the long-term retention of clients and also the exponential return on investment. High ROAS. I'm gonna leave you guys with this. Understand that everybody's got at least 2 to 3 zones of geniuses. And when it comes to branding your mechanisms, that's something that you really only need to focus on once you've been consistently generating about $20,000 to $30,000 a month. Then you can focus on, okay, how do we elevate lead flow? How do we create strategic joint venture partnerships? How do we increase visibility with a low cost follower ad, profile ad? I call ours the position profile funnel, where you actually turn the follower ad into filling the top of funnel, so that you're not constantly just having to follow up with leads that are fatigued by what you've been putting out there in terms of content creation on your feed, but also in your stories. So when it comes to creating pressure but not stress, it's important to understand that sophisticated people, they don't buy impulsively. They're discerning. They want to make informed, educated decisions, and they truly own their vision and intention for the exact type of client that they want to work with. They're not willing to settle for just a client that has the money to pay high ticket just because they had the money. It's no different from like when you walk into Rolex. You can't just throw cash down. You actually have to apply to buy a Rolex. And the reason why they do that is because if they just let you walk in with cash, then it would lower the value of a product where, quite frankly, the cost of manufacturing isn't that much more than an Apple Watch commodity. And that's just a metaphor analogy to help you to understand why so many coaches sound the same. Their promises, their mechanisms all sound the same. And I know how fucking frustrating that could be, but when you understand that the only thing that your dream client cares about is speed, leverage, delegation, and elevating high levels of peak performance energy and focus and momentum, you'll understand why the higher level people, they invest not to go back to survival, not to just cope with life, but rather to make sure that they don't get out-competed, and to make sure that they continue to invest in their future self to see what their potential can actually be. So the last thing I'll say with you when it comes to creating value is you've got to understand how to become a transcendent public speaker. And this is something that when I looked at it, I realized this was a lifelong process of really committing all into becoming a master of speaking to people, not just so that they stop scrolling, but also so that they continue to keep paying attention. And this is done through your tonality, of course, through your eye contact, through your physiology, through your body language and hand gestures, and also through your authentic, genuine care, which is very rare these days. You see a lot of C and B players, and quite frankly, as you grow as a coach and a consultant, you realize there's some C and B players that will just never actually get it, and they will never become an A player. doesn't matter who's coaching them, how much they've invested. They just want to lose. They're addicted to losing. And quite frankly, they don't want to be safe. It's like Drake says, oh, she doesn't want to be safe. It's the same thing. And that's probably trauma related, because that's why they're procrastinating. And when we move into our containers and I show our clients, okay, how to transcend their own inner limitations, we focus deeply on embodied wealth, identity, through the power of hypnotic influence. And the best way to control your state is to start with influencing you. And when we understand that state control, we're not projecting these self-fulfilling prophecies out to the world where people are just reflecting back to us our own self-concept. This is where identity work is something that you cannot fake. To actualize the 7-figure founder version of you is a lot easier said than done. But like I said, when you're in a community that has high standards, holds you to a higher standard than you hold yourself, it becomes much more fun, and you are able to normalize a level of playing at a level of excellence that you step into this true authenticity, which I believe is you're just world class. You're just freaking elite. Aside from your problems that you put aside to serve people, it would be a disservice for me to not invite you into that new perspective where the real you is potent. The real you is also congruent as fuck and grounded and purposeful in every single thing that they say. Every single word that they say in the context of business is not wasted talk. Think about how many conversations the average person has and where that's translated to. Where has that led? Highly likely it has not led anywhere better. Okay? Especially when you think about like how people rationalize their goals and how they just justify these logical goals and these rational, practical targets because they can't think outside the box and they can't think outside of the paradigm of the conversations they're having with other people who ultimately pull them into their standard. And then they wonder why they have these feast and famine income months. And I've been there too. That's why I know it so well. So this has been it. I want to keep this video short, but I want you guys to just really drop into like, what is the level of clarity and to what extent do you actually believe that when you post a story or when you post a feed, do you believe that people will actually reach out to you? We have people every day reaching out to us in DMs and even converting through older YouTube videos because the YouTube video, again, is supposed to be a way to build trust and credibility and an emotional connection so that by the time that they jump on a conversation, meaning your soulmate prospects, they're already pre-sold. Of course, everyone says that online, but more importantly, they already trust your process and they understand why it is transcendent of all the other things that they tried. And just to make it very simple for you to understand, like, YouTube is where more wealthy people hang out because wealthy people can actually pay attention and they don't get constantly distracted by the dumbest shit ever because they respect their time. They value their time. People who don't value their time, they have the wrong priorities, which is exactly why they believe that if they just push things off and they don't step into the unknown, they create a neurotic holding pattern, a pattern of familiarity where the brain is associating familiarity with safety, of course, and then that pattern becomes rigid. The more they procrastinate, the harder it is to get themselves out of that cave. And life is like a cave. When you realize you've gone to the wrong direction according to data and metrics, you also realize that you can't just change directions. You have to admit that you're not telling yourself the truth. Then you have to remove yourself out of the cave. Then and only then can you change directions. This is, by the way, my man.
Your friend.
Just got back from Japan. By the way, hey, tell him how Japan was.
No, Japan
Your
was
experience.
one.
Introduce yourself.
I was there 22 days, all the way from Tokyo, Heiji, Totoro, Hiroshima, then Kobe. I mean, went all over with a local family, and it's beautiful. I love that culture. I so respect. I decided. My plan was to go to China and Taiwan. No, I decided to stay there.
Korea, that's where Okay, so see, I just was telling you and the viewer, if you're watching this, like, I want to bring people like you in the videos to show and prove to you guys that, like, it's normal to just have a lifestyle where you do what you want to do with the people you love, and you also have a system where that's working in the background, and because it's working for you, generating cash flow or lead opportunities for your business, you don't have to physically show up necessarily to make sales or convert clients. And when you don't have a system, think of it this way. This is why the schools didn't obviously teach you. They forgot to leave it out of the curriculum of how to build a system. Nature's a system, right? Nature has systems.
It's not going against the system, but understand that the system is not the formula. Even though you're not with the system, you can be successful.
100%.
Like this guy.
100%. Yeah, and it's always interesting to meet people at a high level when you understand that, personal brand, AI, and having a community that has access to the best data, because it's really about speed of execution. It's about speed of implementation. It's not about how smart you are. It's not about how many years you are or how old you are. What matters is that you learn something and you have about 60 to 70% certainty before you take action on that. Like, for instance, with AI, I wasn't so certain about it, but I think most people, they wait to have this 99%, 100% certainty about this innovation or this adaptation. But by the time they figure out, just like crypto, right? It's too late. You missed out.
Yeah, for sure.
You're missing out on so big dream clients.
Look.
You're missing out on
where
big
we
opportunities.
Look where we are.
We're in Cabo
We're in
right now.
paradise.
We're in paradise.
We're in paradise.
On a celebration of life, because like once you get that high level of like when you're making 7 figures, you're chilling. Like you could go push for 8 figures. Like I could do that, but I always want to be authentic to myself. That's why I'm not in VC. I'm not in mergers acquisitions, or I'm not in.
If you ask me what my schedule is, I don't have. Some days I work 14 hours a day. Some days I don't work. Some days I'm here. I think here.
Yeah.
In paradise.
Exactly.
And this is where I do business. Here.
Yeah.
With rich people, with wealthy people.
Exactly.
In golf courses.
Yeah.
This is where you do business.
Yeah. And
it's not in an office.
Yeah. And so you got to be strategic about the timing of when you're going to be polarizing, because to us, as sometimes we have to be vulnerable to share and make our message relatable to our clients. An example of that would be when we're like talking about like the peasants of society and how they don't actually want to change. They actually want to stay where they are, but we have to let them do that. Okay, so in other words, you can only care about the change in your life. Like no one in your family is going to care about you changing your life. No one, not your husband or your spouse or your kids. The only person who's going to actually give a damn about you accessing your potential is you. And so when you unlearn, that's the fastest way to learn. I think that everyone loves to consume information, but they just get this dopamine and then they don't implement it consistently. So in other words, they visit growth, but they don't operate at growth. And the hardest part is to grow, let's be honest, because there's things you're doing that you obviously know you need to stop doing, and there's some unfamiliar, scary things that you're uncertain about because maybe you've never tried them before, and that can be very humbling in my experience, even like within the context of being in a part of a mastermind or being coached by people like 5x, 10x at the level I'm at. And the reason why I share that is because you're either in the growth stage or you're in the scale phase. Scale phase is when you're simply just reaping the benefits of all that hard work that you did consistently. But everyone wants the scale phase, right? Everyone wants to sit back and get this like easy get rich quick scheme, and they don't understand that there's different modes that you're in. And so when you're in the mode of learning what works and what doesn't work, you have to just put your head down, and
that is why you're here.
That patience.
That is why you're here and not in your country or everywhere else. You're here in paradise with these people celebrating Day of the Dead in Mexico. Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, Day of the Dead. We're having this parade, and you're gonna show them.
I appreciate you, bro. Thank you. Thank you for being in the video.
My pleasure.
Yeah, you're the man. Thank you. So I just want to wrap up this video, guys. See, it should be normal for you to just be hanging out in the middle of nowhere and taking the loved ones with you, or having this kind of philosophy of life where your business feeds that instead of being a slave to your phone. I understand how frustrating it can be when you watch other people less talented than you or less qualified than you making the money that you know deep down you should be making. But like I said, I always tell people how I'm influencing them, how I'm selling them, and I'll even get it to the point where it's funny, to the point where I'll help them help me craft a pitch, craft an offer at an event that I offer to them, and then they still will buy. So don't be afraid to like stop gatekeeping your best stuff. Don't be afraid to do that, because that only further edifies your authority in your category. So in other words, all that was just a way to help you guys understand that you need to have the right paradigm so that you can look at the results from a different perspective, and you can reverse engineer that with basic math. You'd be so surprised at how you do the simple math and how you're gonna scale your business to double, triple your conversions. You will understand also why people like me get frustrated. Let's say you see this like quote unquote alpha coach or whatever, like even strong feminine coach, they get pissed off and they polarize the shit out of their audience. The reason why they do that is because they actually believe that you can get the same results. They actually believe they wouldn't waste their time on people talking to those people. And so if you're trying to convince people, I encourage you to just not try to convince everybody, try to be everything to everybody. Once you become so precise in who it's for and who it's not for, and you understand how to turn that into a freaking system, you'll realize that you wake up one day and you're actually living the dream. You're buying the dream, selling the dream. You are creating visions which have an overarching mission, and that's again going to give you peace of mind going to bed at night, not wondering where your next big breakthrough is going to come from, but rather helping people to understand why you get so maybe a little bit irate temporarily, to not just take action sometimes, but also to help them to understand that the math equation that I'm doing, for example, is going through all the money that people are leaving on the table every single week from not innovating their offer positioning or not changing their subconscious identity around becoming a transcendent executor and speaker, or through not integrating AI into their operating system. How much they're overpaying their team out of ego because they hired too fast out of ego. I made the same mistake. And also how to make sure that they get the biggest ROI, the biggest level of speed and leverage from having simple campaigns that focus deeply on the winner effect. Your dopamine's locked in. Your hormones are balanced. Okay, you're in an upward spiral of momentum. You're just letting go and you're losing yourself in the process. This is how you just get into this upward spiral. It becomes magnetic. And that is actually how high level just people are. They're just operating from a different frequency, a different paradigm. And that's quite different from what most people are at, because if you were actually getting results, do you actually think, do you realize that you would normally be getting this qualification vibe and your own self, and that people would feel the boundary with your tonality, they would feel the respect for time that you have, for every single freaking breath that you take. They would feel that. Now when you're in a downward spiral, you act needy, right? You're always going for the take. You don't have an overflow, an outflow of energy, but rather you're always looking at what you can get. You see, the six-figure coaches, they're always thinking about themselves. The seven-figure coaches, we're always out of our head and deep in our dream client's head. Okay? We're able to get outside of our head and not filter ourselves and be able to bring people around us who get the game. They understand it deeply and they believe in God's mission. They allow it to flow through. And when you filter, your content filters everyone out, the ones that are not even qualified, you end up creating so much impact and changing so many lives, even just through your marketing. So I want to show you guys this dude. Hey! Hey, hey! See that thing? Look at that! Sad song! Hell yeah! So guys, I just want to help you to understand that when you are in a downward spiral, okay, you have to understand why that is, and you have to understand how to get out of your mind and stop thinking so much and only focus on your positive qualities, okay, outside of business. This is what gives you value outside of business. Why did you stop having fun as an inner child? Why did you stop creating uncomfortable situations for yourself? Why did you stop becoming obsessed with your passion for changing the lives of other people? Well, the reason why is because maybe you were focused too much on motivation, which is fleeting, obviously, and then discipline, which is just forcing yourself to do something out of obligation because you have to. But obsession, that's completely different. Completely different. You love what you do. I could work 24 hours in a row and I would just feel fine. So have a great day, guys. Click the link below to figure out the best process, okay? The highest value ecosystem in scaling premium offers. I gotta go live life, but I hope you guys have the best day of your fucking life. And we'll talk to you soon, right?